Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for the Fall 2024 SIPA 4+1 Pathway Information Session. Excited to have you all here and to get an overview from all of us and hear your questions and thoughts. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Christine Valenza-Shin. I am Executive Director for Beyond Barnard, and we serve as the administrative liaison for the 4+1 pathways, as well as providing advising support both while you're still at Barnard and during your fifth year as the need arises, and of course beyond. Excited to welcome other folks in the room today. My colleague Claire Nash, who many of you may have already corresponded with and gotten emails from. She also provides administrative support for the pathways here at Beyond Barnard. Also here today, who will be speaking shortly, is Professor Elizabeth Ananat. She is the faculty lead for the SIPA 4+1 pathway from the Barnard side. And on the Columbia side, our colleagues from the School of International and Public Affairs are Suya Yi, who's the Associate Dean for Student Affairs, and Brianne M. Kane, who's the Associate Director of Admissions. I'm going to just say a few words of welcome and context, and then turn things over for more specific information to my colleagues. So Beyond Barnard supports the accelerated 4+1 pathways, which allows students to combine an undergraduate liberal arts education at Barnard with a master's degree at Columbia. We have pathway agreements with 5 different schools at Columbia, and the SIPA partnership, even though it only started being called a 4+1 pathway 6 or 7 years ago, is a partnership that's existed for over 25 years. Many students, many Barnard students over the years have done a combined degree with Barnard and SIPA. So it's a longstanding partnership. It's a very fruitful partnership, and we're excited to have seen it evolve over the years, both with changes on the Barnard side and changes on the SIPA side. So we're excited to give you information about pathways in general, and today about the SIPA pathway specifically. I just wanted to outline a little bit of the advising and support that's available to you and how it kind of breaks down. Beyond Barnard advisors are here to talk with you about how the possible the SIPA pathways fit with your academic interest and career goals. We help with, we support the application requirements and timeline, and give general support on your application. And that can include reviewing your personal statements or the resume CV. We can walk through advice for soliciting references. The Barnard faculty lead role is more on the academic side. The Barnard faculty lead, in this case, Professor Ananat, is here to meet with you to talk about your academic progress and sort of talk through how you might finish your requirements at Barnard, and to discuss your Barnard major and minor and general requirements and how they relate to the SIPA 4+1 pathway, with specific focus on how will you complete the SIPA requirements in years 4, starting in year 4. And most importantly, and this is important to understand, for the SIPA pathway, it's actually a two-part admissions process. The first piece of it is that Professor Ananat has to approve your year 4 course plan and give you clearance to apply. So that occurs in January of your junior year, and then the application deadline to SIPA is in early February. I believe February 5th this year, but you'll clarify. So it's really important to start in general. If you're first years and sophomores, and juniors, you want to start with Beyond Barnard advisors and talk things through. But it's also very important to follow up with Professor Ananat on the academic side, as well as your major advisors and other academic advisors at Barnard, to make sure that you're considering everything as you figure out whether you want to make the application and make the choice. And then finally, our SIPA administrators and advisors, Suya and Brianne and other people on their team, can talk to you more specifically after this info session if you have questions about specific concentrations and what might be a good fit for you. They are who you would go to with any questions about application logistics, if you're having any trouble with the application process, and certainly can also speak to the possible career pathways a SIPA degree can open up. So wherever you are in the process, start with Beyond Barnard, move on to the faculty lead, and then reach out to the SIPA side of things as you need to. And then, of course, if you apply and are accepted into the program, then a lot of support will come from our SIPA colleagues as well. But you can always circle back to us. And the one thing I always say to all 4+1 pathway participants is, if you get conflicting information, you can always circle back to Beyond Barnard. We don't always know the answer, but we can reach out, and that's part of us acting as liaison, because sometimes, sometimes things can get confusing. You'll hear things from your peers who are in a different pathway, and each pathway is different. So that's why we want to make sure you can always circle back to Barnard with questions, and we can always direct you to where you can get the answer if we don't have the answer. So having said all of that, I'm going to turn things over to Professor Ananat to talk more about her role and some of the things you should be thinking about as you contemplate doing the pathway or going ahead to make the decision to apply.
Christine, I will need you to enable my screen sharing. Or you could make me a co-host. That's easier. Okay. Okay. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. Okay. So just a little bit about my role as the faculty advisor. So basically, the thing about the SIPA 4+1 is it can be an amazing, really enriching educational experience, unless it jeopardizes your timely and successful graduation from Barnard, in which case that would be bad instead of good. It is my job to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'm here to make sure that you only apply to SIPA if you are positioned to complete your Barnard degree successfully during your first year of grad school, and also to help you figure out earlier in your Barnard career how to set yourself up so that you will be able to successfully complete your Barnard degree during your first year of grad school. Okay, so here are the things that I will need to check in January of your junior year when you are applying. I need to make sure that there is room for you to take that basically, this is how much room there is. During your first year of grad school at SIPA and your fourth year at Barnard, there is room for you to take up to 2 courses at Barnard. For most students, that's going to be their 2-semester senior requirement for their major. Some other students may have completed their major requirements early, but they might have 1 or 2 GERs left to take. So if you will finish the summer before your senior year with the number of courses you need for your major still to complete in your fourth year / first year of grad school, plus the number of GERs you still need to complete greater than 2, then you can't apply to the 4+1 because there's only room to take 2 courses at Barnard. Okay. So it's my job to make sure that you have at most 2 courses at Barnard that you still need to take. The other way that you might have more than 2 courses at Barnard that you still need to take is because you might be a transfer student and you studied abroad or something like that. And so while you have enough credits in general to graduate, you might not have enough credits at Barnard to reach the required 60 credits at Barnard. Because basically Barnard can't give you a degree unless half of the total credits toward your degree were actually taken at Barnard. So if you'll finish the summer before your senior year with the credits you've taken at Barnard so far being less than 52, given that you'll only have room to take 2 courses at Barnard, your 4th year, at 4 credits each, that's 8 credits. In order to get to 60 credits, you need to have taken at least 52 credits at Barnard already. So if you're going to finish the summer before your senior year with your total credits taken at Barnard less than 52, then again, I can't let you apply to the 4+1. Okay. If you do have your major courses needed plus your GERs needed is less than or equal to 2, and the credits that you've taken at Barnard is greater than or equal to 52, you may still be in a situation where there are more than 2 total classes left that you would like to take at Barnard in order to finish a second major, a minor, a certificate, etc. Then you can still apply to the 4+1, but you have to basically give up this other goal. So there's a trade-off, and I'm happy to talk you through how to think about that trade-off for your long-term career plans, but there can be sort of an either or, like 2 great ways to capstone your career at Barnard, and you need to pick. Okay, so you're going to need either 121 or 122 credits in order to graduate from Barnard. I'm going to make sure that you are on track to do that if you start your first year of grad school, your 4th year. And the way I need to do that is that if the total number of credits you have taken by the beginning of your senior year is short of this by more than 8 credits, then during your first year of grad school, you're going to need to count some of your SIPA courses toward your Barnard degree. Most SIPA courses can count as general credits toward your Barnard degree. They just have to include liberal arts content. So there are some courses that are required at SIPA during your first or second year that don't count. So negotiation, management, budgeting, etc. Those are not liberal arts content, so they can't be counted toward your SIPA, toward your Barnard degree. There also are courses that might not count. So those would be ones that are redundant with work you've done at Barnard. So someone who is a political science major and hasn't taken microeconomics can count a microeconomics course taken at SIPA toward the Barnard degree, but someone who took microeconomics at Barnard cannot count a SIPA microeconomics course toward the Barnard degree because that would be counting the same class twice. So I'm going to decide the tricky cases if it's not entirely clear whether a course would count or not. And here is, now that I've told you all the things that I'm going to check for, this is how I check. So in January, you're going to complete a form with the information on the courses that you've taken so far and your plan for the rest of your degree completion. This will include the courses that you're planning to take in the spring of your junior year, as well as any summer coursework, etc. And then it's going to also include what SIPA courses you plan to take in your first year that you believe can count toward your Barnard credit total, if you haven't already completed enough credits at Barnard that you don't need to count any particular SIPA credits. And then I will give you feedback in January. So you might hear from me, okay, you're good to go. But it's not a concern if you hear from me that we need to iterate, because many plans have holes the first time through. If there's a hole in your plan, that doesn't mean that you won't be able to apply. It just means we need to iron out some details to make sure that you'll be successful. Once we've agreed on a plan, I grant you permission to apply to SIPA. Not everyone gets permission, so I just want to set expectations there. It's not always the case that we can come up with a plan to make this work if there hasn't sort of been enough advanced preparation. Okay, so my other roles, I'm always happy to talk to you about whether the SIPA degree is a good fit for your goals in life, career, etc. And I'm always happy to talk to you about how to make a successful graduation plan. I can do that as early as your first fall at Barnard. And people who talk to me early tend to have a smoother pathway to the application process, because they've planned so that they are set up in fall of their junior year. They know how they're going to be hitting those credit requirements, those degree requirements, those GER requirements, so that they have smooth sailing. But I am available to talk to you as late as your junior fall, and we can often figure out ways that you can have a successful plan, even if we are talking for the first time in fall of your junior year. I have dedicated SIPA 4+1 office hours. Unlike my department posted regular office hours, these are not oversubscribed. They are just for you. So it's a terrible link, but we will circulate this link later. Uh, and uh, and that's my role in this whole shebang. So I will turn it back over to Christine.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to put the link to the course approval form in the chat, and we'll also add the link to Professor Amnat's dedicated 4+1 office hours in just a moment. Just want to make a note, it can be really helpful, even if you're not a junior getting ready to apply, to look at that course approval form. There's small tweaks are made year to year, but the general outline can be really helpful, and it also links to some other important information. So feel free to follow up with that. And I'm going to now turn things over to Dean Yee.
Thank you so much. Thank you both. Hello, everybody. I'm Suya Yee. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Affairs at SIPA, and I am the advisor on the SIPA side for the Barnard 4+1 program. It's a very special program for us as well. It's our biggest 4+1/5-year program at SIPA, and I do believe that because there are usually maybe 10 to 15 students in the program at any given year, the students there do sort of form a cohort community. And so that's a great aspect of being a part of this program too. So this is a very exciting time because SIPA has just announced a new / enhanced curriculum, which will be starting in the fall 2025. So any of you, if this is maybe like your second or third time coming to an info session, pay attention because there have been a lot of changes. And for those of you getting ready to apply, you'll want to pay attention as well. And I'm also really happy to have my colleague, Brianne Kane from our admissions team here to help present. There are always lots of questions about the SIPA application, when's the right time to apply, which I put in my application. And so we have some real expertise here for you today. So I'm gonna hand it over to Brianne from admissions, and just let you know, an overview, we wanted to use this info session time to give you an overview of the school. I'll talk a little bit about the curriculum, mostly reinforcing what Professor Ananat said about how to make this program work in terms of what you'll need to have the space for in your 4th year / 1st year at SIPA, and then some details on your application, and then hopefully some time for questions. So Brianne, over to you.
Thank you so much, Suya. And hi, everyone. Before I start, I have to obviously play Zoom bingo that everyone can see my slide deck, correct? Everyone can see. Okay, cool. Well, thank you all for joining today. I just want to point out, no matter what year you are, 1st year, 2nd year, 3rd year, 4th year, if this is your 1st time coming to this or your 3rd time, I think it's really important to know the work that you're putting into this. This is really great strides that you're already making, and whether or not it's just to get information on graduate school at large, it shows that you have a lot of interest and care in what that next step looks for you. And on our end, we love to see demonstrated interest. So thanks for carving out an hour of your time to learn a little bit more about SIPA and the admission process. As Suya mentioned, my name is Brianne Kane. I am one of the Associate Directors of Admission here at SIPA. And by the way, SIPA is the School of International and Public Affairs. So if you weren't familiar with that acronym, I know at Columbia and Barnard, we speak in a lot of different acronyms and essentially have our own language. But just to be clear, that's what it stands for. I'm thrilled to be here today to answer any questions that you may have. And maybe if you weren't familiar with the program, I have some slides, about the program, about the degree and whatnot. So what I'll talk about today is why SIPA, the advantages that students have here, a little bit about our degree overview, student life as a SIPA student just in general, and then mainly talking about the application process and what you can all expect. It's very different from applying from from high school to undergrad, so I want to talk about some tips and tricks that I would recommend. I'll touch a little bit on a financing strategy. Unfortunately, I am not the financial aid team. I'm quite lucky to have 3 incredible colleagues who are, and I certainly can refer you to them if you do have any questions. And then obviously Suya and I will be here for any questions that you may have. But just a little bit about SIPA. We were founded back in 1946 in the aftermath of World War II. and we became a place in New York City for diplomats and officials and professionals to meet and come together and try to solve the complex issues of a post-war world. And I bring this up today because I find that sentiment to still be true. We are a place where future diplomats, future professionals, and future officials come to learn how to solve these complex issues that we face in a modern day world. And some of those complex issues have been defined by our incredible esteemed faculty that I'll talk a little bit about later as core challenges. So maybe these are things that you're studying currently in your degree at Barnard or areas that you're really passionate about. And if so, you're in good hands. These core challenges are different pillars or themes that you will find during this 2-year program or your time at SIPA. These are all different core challenges that we've recognized as ones that are going to continue to influence our world in many different ways and how policy works as well. You know, thinking about technology and innovation, look at how much that has changed and influenced policy with the rise in misinformation and the rise in artificial intelligence. So what I think is really cool about these core challenges is that these will be areas that we will focus on during your time at SIPA, so you have the exposure and the toolkit to go off in the world and be able to tackle these challenges among the other core parts of your curriculum that you will be studying. So I really like the 5 core challenges. They're a theme throughout your time here at SIPA. And speaking of SIPA, when I'm asked what is my favorite part about SIPA, I have quite a few different areas, but first and foremost, we are the world's most international and global school for policy, if you weren't familiar with that already. And that comes from our large international representation that I'll talk a little bit about later. But we are very fortunate to have such a global and diverse student body overall. But when students ask on another level, what do I love about SIPA? I've narrowed it down to 3 areas, my big 3, as I like to say, which is the city being located in this major metropolitan city, a choice and a cutting edge curriculum, and then the connections, the people that you meet in the classroom, your cohort that may come from Barnard and beyond. So I won't spend a lot of time in New York City. You are all currently studying in New York City. It really is an active learning laboratory for our students and a global hub with unparalleled opportunities. But thinking about what that means for SIPA students, we have access to some of the world's best organizations that are just a subway ride away. Of course, the United Nations comes to mind, and being so close to the United Nations allows a lot of access. Columbia just hosted the World's Leaders Forum last month during UN Week. There was a student covered on our Instagram who spoke at the UN General Assembly about her work in climate change and human rights in Africa. So if you've not checked that video out, it's pretty cool. But these opportunities may not be the same if you were studying anywhere else but in New York City. So definitely don't take for granted those opportunities. Also, the leaders, the humanitarian workers, the ambassadors, people who are present in the field. George Stephanopoulos just came and spoke in one of the courses inside the classroom, inside the Situation Room, talking about the history of what the Situation Room has looked like with our dean here at SIPA and then Secretary Clinton as well. So certainly, I know you all probably don't take for granted studying in New York City, but at the graduate school level, I think that you can find even more access and more opportunities to better set yourself professionally. When it comes to choice at SIPA, we have a cutting edge curriculum, as I mentioned, and we prepare you for all the fields. So the public, private, nonprofit, and multilateral sector, our curriculum will prepare you for entering any of those areas. So we offer 450 courses at SIPA alone throughout the year, which is a lot. And then we also offer over 1,000 courses to choose from at Columbia. So you do have the option with electives to take courses and cross-register at some of the other Columbia graduate schools at large. So these will be options for you as well when you are a SIPA student. And lastly, the connections, the people in the classroom, such as the faculty. We have 75 full-time tenured faculty. We have over 300 adjunct faculty and 7 research centers. So one of which is the Institute of Global Politics. That is our newest one. It was founded by Secretary Clinton and Dean Yargi Millo. And I've been really excited to watch the work that's coming from there. One of my favorite ones that they've done recently is part of the Women's Initiative. They did the state of child care policy in New York City and brought in local city council to talk about what child care looks like for parents and guardians. And I thought that one was very compelling, and certainly check it out if you want. It's on YouTube, but such cool access to our connections, both on the research side and the faculty side. I think what's really cool in graduate school is the relationship between professor and student, which kind of does switch more toward a mentorship, and they're able to recommend you for these incredible internships and full-time positions. And lastly, when it comes to connections, our alumni community, certainly you can't do good work alone, and we are very fortunate to have over 25,000 alumni in 160 countries. So we are very globally represented. We have many of our students who may return to their home country or bring their work internationally. And in New York City alone, we have 10,000 SIPA alumni. So New York City is a huge hub for our students. Next, I do want to talk about the degree overview. I know, Dean, you kind of alluded to our degrees and how it's changed a little bit. But I do want to leave this screen up for just a second. Now, when you are doing this program, this 4+1 program, you will have access to the Masters of International Affairs or the Masters of Public Administration. So those are our flagship programs. So do keep in mind those would be your two options. I did leave this up, the other programs up that maybe in the future, if you're thinking about graduate school and it's not the 4+1 program, that to let you know, we have 8 programs in total. But with the 4+1, the MIA and the MPA would be the options that you would be able to enroll in. Now, as mentioned, we have just recently enhanced our curriculum. I know that I'm very excited. Dean Yee is very excited about this. It was a super necessary and exciting change to happen within our curriculum. So our MIA and our MPA have more distinct features between them. Our MIA being more globally immersive, including 2 tracks within it. Our MPA being STEM designated. So if you are joining today as an international student, this will be a STEM designated degree. Overall, there's a more flexible core, and we have reframed our concentrations, and we have a new expansive, and I mean very expansive, list of minors for students. Now, if you're trying to decide maybe what degree is best for you, fear not, I have a slide for that. So if it's helpful to take a screenshot, or I know this is being recorded, so you can always reference this. But to try to summarize this information, our MPA is quantitative heavy. It is STEM designated. Thinking about the content within this program will be very econ heavy, data analytics, management, and leadership. So thinking about how policy may fit into that space. Our MIA is going to be globally immersive. There's going to be a focus on diplomacy and governance, thinking about international policy, international perspective, and cultural competencies. I would say the MIA is more qualitative. So think MPA quantitative, MIA qualitative. And certainly, Deanie and I are very happy to answer questions about which program would be right for you. Within the programs, we have 8 concentrations. So these 8 concentrations can be applied for the MIA or MPA. Think of this as your major during your time here. I certainly invite you to look at look at these on the website. Think of what professors are teaching these courses, what may connect to you mostly in the field of policy that you hope to study. And lastly, our minors. I told you it was a very expansive list. So this is accessible to students studying any concentration. So you could be studying human rights and gender equity and pick up a minor within development and governance. So these minors are all new and very exciting as well. Our concentrations have been revamped. So some of them you may recognize from previous years, but overall, both are very new, the concentrations and the minors. The sample curriculum may not apply to you, so I wouldn't worry too much about this page, but I do want to note that the MIA has those 2 tracks, International Affairs and Politics track and an Econ and Quant Analysis track. The difference is that the Econ and Quant Analysis track will just have another Econ course. So if you love Econ, you're able to do the MIA and have it to be a little bit more quant heavy.
Brianne, can I pause there for a moment?
Please.
Can we go back to that slide?
Yes.
Because I wanted to just take a moment to talk with the students about a little bit about the structure of the program. And so as Professor Ananat mentioned, you'll have a maximum of 1 Barnard course per semester in your 4th year, and that will make space for you to take 12 to 13 credits of SIPA coursework in that year. And so looking here at the sample curriculum, what's missing here are the credit amounts for these courses, but it's roughly 12 to 13 credits for that first year per semester. And some of those courses are 1.5 credits. And so one of the previous slides talked about flexibility. And so we're looking at a new kind of modular structure for some of our courses. So a previous core course on politics of policymaking is now broken down into 2 courses, one politics 1, politics 2, or policy skills 1 and policy skills 2. And that will and those second parts of those politics and policy skills courses are going to be you'll get to choose from a list of options of what you'll want to do for that second part of those 2 courses. But structurally, the program overall, the SIPA degree is 54 credits. 30 credits now is the core, which is an increase from previously. It was around 22 credits. So the core has now gone up to 30 credits. The concentration remains a 15 credit requirement, which equates to 5 courses. And then that really exciting and extensive list of minors, we want to note that those are optional. And so in the previous SIPA degree, students were required to do a concentration and a specialization. And now students are required to do the core and a concentration and complete 54 credits. The 30 credit core plus the 15 credit concentration leaves 9 credits of electives. The optional minors give you the option of grouping those electives into a minor that's being hosted by one of the concentrations. So on the one hand, there are more requirements for the concentration, for the core, but the specialization requirement has been removed and been replaced with an optional minor requirement. So what we're expecting structurally is that the 4+1 student completes a minimum of 24 credits at SIPA in their first year. And then in your 5th year or your +1 year over with us, when you're fully in residence with us, you're doing 2 credits of 15 semesters for that 30 credits in that final year, which is around 5 classes a semester, which what I hear from my Barnard students is pretty typical of 5 credit semester, a 5 course semester. So just wanted to pause on that and make a mental note for myself to add a slide on that for the future. But Brianne, please carry on. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, thank you for talking about that a little bit more in detail because I didn't even know the breakdown. So it's great to have you here to do that because I wouldn't have known that. I do just want to briefly touch on the capstone workshop project, which is during your final semester of your final year here, which is a live consulting project where you're working with a real life client on a real life issue. The goal of it is to provide practical recommendations with an innovative analysis. These are all photos from previous capstones. The top right-hand photo, for example, that was spring 2023. That group worked with the Nigerian Investment Sovereignty Authority, working on finding waste management solutions within Nigeria. They actually did travel to Africa for 10 days and got to meet their client and travel to 5 different cities. So oftentimes a capstone workshop can actually bring in some international components, which is pretty cool. Next, briefly.
Sorry, one more thing. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
No, you're good.
I just wanted to note that for the MIA degree, a new feature is that MIA students can opt to do a thesis instead of a capstone project. This might be particularly appealing for students who have a more individualized research interest or students who might be interested in applying to a PhD in the program in the future. But we did have, this is a brand new feature of the new curriculum, a thesis option for MIA students. Thanks.
Yeah. And I know I touched on this earlier, but a global and diverse student body is really one of the best parts about being at SIPA. We are typically around 1,300 to 1,400 students. Our average cohort size is around 500 to 550 students. So we are a bit larger. We are just around 60% international students, which is incredible. We have students come from every corner of the world to study this program. And as I do often tell students, there was a time last year where I had to Google 2 countries because I'd quite literally never heard of them before. And I think that's something to bring up, though it's embarrassing for me, but special to share how diverse students are coming into this program. We see typically students from 100 countries. One of my favorite fun facts as well is that in a 15-floor building, you can hear over 30 different native languages being spoken. And on average, this is what you can see from some of the peers that would study within this program. About 4 years of full-time work experience, about to be 27 years old, with an average GPA of a 3.6. I would not harp on the work experience, as you will be coming from undergrad, and that is very noted, so don't worry too much about that. But know that some of your peers may have a few years of work experience within the student body. If you weren't familiar, SIPA is a very robust student group population, and I will shout out Deanie for that and the Office of Student Affairs for creating such a great community. These are just a sample of all of our organizations. I quite literally could not fit them all on a slide. That's how many we have. I always say that graduate school does not need to be all work. There can be some play, and this is a full-time program. You are here in person, so being able to build your community through a diverse options of student groups is really cool. You are also able to join any of the other Columbia networks and Columbia student groups as well, which is a huge positive as well. And it's possible to start your own student group when you're here. So if you have one maybe that you are involved in at Barnard that you want to bring to SIPA, that's an option as well. And before I wrap up the student piece part, I do want to note our Career Advancement Center. This is some data from 2023. About 82% of graduates had filled out. I won't go through every speaking point here, but I just want to note a few things. They did over 2,000 hours of available advising appointments, which also does include alumni. So as a SIPA student, you will have lifelong access to the services available in our Career Advancement Center. We use something called SIPA Connect, which is similar to a Handshake or LinkedIn, but it is just for SIPA students. And there were 5,300 internships and full-time postings on SIPA Connect throughout the last year. There are over 100 plus employer information sessions held throughout the last year. There are really great opportunities. I'm on somehow the CAC email list, and I just saw that they were doing headshots for students to update their LinkedIn in the next week. And I thought, what a great opportunity. Those are free services that you don't have to pay for. So I think career advancement centers and having those folks dedicated to bettering you is incredible. We also do have alumni mentoring services as well. So we have about 20 alumni that mentor students through the CAC. And these are just some of our top employers at Columbia for graduates. Our top employer is actually the World Bank, if anyone was interested. So we see a lot of students go toward the World Bank, but you can see a diversity throughout different sectors on this slide as well. All right, so time to get into the little nitty and gritty, and I want to leave room for questions. So I might try to get through this part a little quicker and leave room for questions. But something to note with the Barnard and SIPA program, the benefits is that your application fee is waived, so you do not have to pay that $95. Your deposit is also waived, so that would be $1,000, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. As Dean Yee mentioned, you would start classes during your 4th year, and the application deadline is February 5th. So you still have plenty of time to work on your application. The application is open, so you can apply as early as today if you would like to submit your application. Students who submit an application by February 5th will have a decision in mid-March. So you can look out for an admission decision in mid-March. Now, I know this checklist often seems very overwhelming, but we will go through a lot of these parts. So we need your application. We do not need an application fee. That is waived. We have our required written essays, optional essays, video essay, letters of recommendation, resume, transcripts, and then testing if that's applicable to you. Now, I know this seems overwhelming, but I will talk a little bit more in detail of what this looks like, and perhaps this can be helpful. So we have 4 required written essays, a personal statement, which is 500 words maximum, which is not a lot of space. So in your personal statement, please be personal. As someone who reviews applications, I love just genuinely getting to know a student, understanding your background, your interests, your goals. You know, for all of you who may be interested in this 4+1, what are you interested? Why the 4+1? Why at this juncture of your life? Why are you committed and ready to enter graduate school right now? Why at SIPA? What is it that sticks out? Is it a professor? Is it a class? Is it this new curriculum that is enhanced that really is tailored toward your goals? I think what's really important is to be yourself and obviously talk from your own point of view. I don't recommend recapping your resume point by point, and the reason being is I'll have your resume already. So the personal statement, you can focus a little bit more on creating that story and sharing those interests and goals. Your second essay, that topic changes from year to year, but this year it's actually about those 5 global challenges that I had mentioned in the beginning. So we'll ask you to identify one of those challenges and how that may relate to ultimately what your goals are. So maybe you want to study human rights and gender and equity, and you pick geopolitical stability, and you want to talk about that in a certain area of the world, for example. My don't here is don't be broad or vague. Pick one of them and talk about that, about how you see that fitting into your goals. Some newer essays are the last two are MIA or MPA specific program. So depending on which degree you pick, there will be two different questions, one for the MIA and one for the MPA. The MIA being more globally direct, so talking about a foreign policy issue, just in general, and the MPA talking about how you see quantitative and quantitative work impacting policy for years to come. This is actually 200 words maximum, so it is quite short. And the short essay is meant to be very fun. It's literally an elevator pitch about yourself. The prompt is if you walked in class the first day and you introduce yourself. So maybe tell us something about you that we wouldn't have seen on your application, your favorite TV show or your favorite hobby. I think that will be fun for us to know, and it really will humanize the application. We do have optional written essays. You do not have to write these essays, but we have both a diversity essay and additional information essay. Just to talk about the additional information essay, if you have anything you'd like to clarify to the admission committee, maybe you failed a semester of undergrad and you want to talk about what happened. You had undiagnosed depression and anxiety. You were able to bounce back with the necessary support that you then got. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about your quantitative skills within the additional information that maybe wasn't through an econ course. So that is what you can use this additional information essay for. We do have a video essay. It's far and beyond the question I get the most on when it comes to the application. So if you have questions or if you are doing it right now, I'm happy to answer questions at the end, but it is the final part of your application. It's after you submit your online application. You are given a random prompt. It could be quite literally anything from what was the last book that you read or what does public policy mean to you. You'll have 60 seconds to think about your answer and then 90 seconds to record. So there are no right or wrong answers with it. There are also no reshoots, so it's just one or done. And if you take anything away from me talking for the past 20 minutes, please just remember, don't overthink the video essay. For me on my end, I just love to get to hear someone talk about a random topic. Think about it as if a professor called on you and said in 90 seconds, tell me about the last book that you read. Once again, it kind of humanizes the application. I'm happy to give any tips or tricks with the video essay, but my number one part is don't overthink it. For letters of recommendation, we require 2. A third is optional. As many of you are maybe in anywhere from your first or fourth year of undergrad, certainly get to know your academic professors well. These are people who can write and support you. So if you've not gone to office hours, try to get to office hours and build that actual relationship and cultivate a relationship with a professor. Getting those authentic letters of recommendation, you can tell when students have made those relationships. So you're required 2 letters. They could be 2 academic, 2 professional, 1 academic, 1 professional. So depending on what works best for you, a third letter is optional. And what to include to your recommender, I often think that maybe providing your personal statement or a resume, if it's an academic professor, maybe providing the classes that you took with them or the projects that you worked on. These can often be very helpful for your letters. For your resume, I know here in the United States, people hear resume, they think it has to be 1 page. It can certainly be longer than a page. We typically see about 3 to 4 pages on average. So certainly include everything from your education, work history, accomplishments, research work, volunteer work, areas of expertise. All of that can be included on your general resume. Overall, I will point out, please don't include anything from high school. This would be anything from when you started at Barnard and beyond. We do now have a quantitative and language section of our resume. So we were talking about this before the presentation started. So on the quantitative side, you will be asked to input quantitative courses that you took during your academia after high school. For us, quantitative courses are economics, mathematics, statistics, sciences, engineering, and computer science. We'll ask for the name of the course, where you took the course, the grade you earned, and a description. You would all be very surprised on how many transcripts just say mathematics and we have no idea what the course is. So it helps us understand what courses that you have taken during your time in academia. We also have a travel and language resume. So this is for you to list. We also do have an example of the language resume on the application. So if you are confused in the way it should look, we do have a sample one that you can see and hyperlinked in the application. But we want to learn a little bit more about your cultural experiences. So any languages that you speak, whether that's beginner, intermediate, advanced, fluent, mother tongue, please share those. immersion experience, if you studied abroad, if you did 2 weeks of, within a class, if you did an internship abroad, please share those different experiences that you have. You can include personal travel if you would like to, but we would prefer to see more professional travel if you've had the ability to do so. If you have not had the ability to do so, please don't panic. That is okay if you have not as well. And certainly for both the quantitative and language side, any skills or areas of expertise that you've gained in either one of those can be included in those sections too. And lastly, when it comes to your financing strategy, I just want to highlight that, which, you all know that living in a major metropolitan city can often be expensive. So we do want you to start strategizing early. So whether that's through yourself or family, student loans, so both direct and private loans, there is public service loan forgiveness after working in the field for 10 years. If you are an international student, you can apply for private student loans with a U.S. cosigner, or for some private student loans, there are those options. And about a third of our students will utilize student loans during the process. If you've never visited SIPA's database for financial aid, we have an incredible external scholarship that was put together by my colleagues on the financial aid team. It is really resourceful just for graduate school in general. There are a lot of really great scholarships. I find free money to be good money on my end. So I highly recommend that you look at that, and I can also drop it in the chat at some point during the Q&A. And then SIPA assistantship. So during your 5th year, that +1 year, you can work as an assistant. So whether that be a teaching assistant, a program assistant, or a research assistant, this does come with an employment and a salary. You can work up to 200 hours a semester, which is great, which averages about 20 hours a week. So these are really great opportunities. You could work in my office, you could work with a professor, but there are options for our 4+1 program to do the assistantships. And I am going to leave this slide up here with both my contact. This is my direct email, and then Dean Yeag's direct email as well. But I guess now maybe would be a good time for both Dean Yee and I to answer any questions that you may have, whether that be about the admission process or just generally speaking about the 4+1 program, where she may be able to answer a little bit more of the nitty-gritty with the structure. So we're happy to take questions if you want to put it in the Q&A or unmute yourself, whatever works.
Hi, I have a question. Hi, my name is Kai and I'm currently a junior student at Barnard. So like since I just decided that I'm applying to the SIPA 4+1, I think I have most of my requirements for the major as well as the GR requirements done. Does that mean that I like kind of sort of have the room for the SIPA 4+1 courses?
Was that question directed to me?
Just in general.
So it's possibly. So
Okay.
if you're going to have all of your major requirements and all of your GER requirements, except for a maximum of 2
Right.
completed by the end of this coming summer,
Yeah.
and you have enough, you have at least 52 credits at Barnard completed by the end of this summer.
Yep.
And you have enough total credits at Barnard, less the 8 you'll complete next year at Barnard, the up to 8 you'll complete at Barnard next year, and less the liberal arts classes that you will take at SIPA next year, to total 121 or 122, depending on whether you are a transfer student or not, then probably. It's very hard for me to give you a more detailed answer in this format.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. I think I also scheduled a meeting with you on November, so I can talk to you more detail about that. I also want to ask like what is the acceptance rate for this program? I'm not really familiar with the statistics on this.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't know what the acceptance rate for this program is. So yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with it either.
It's a high acceptance rate. We work, and because the students do so much preparation on the Barnard side, um, in terms of eligibility and um, we find that many of the students who apply are eligible and very strong candidates. So it's a pretty good acceptance rate overall.
Thank you.
I don't have the exact percentage though.
I'll just follow up to say with that, I just want to encourage, I think it's really important if you're a junior and either already decided you want to apply or are seriously considering it, it is good at the very least to fill out that course approval form, just to get the lay of the land. And then if you have any questions or concerns, if you can discuss those with Professor Ananat ahead of time, and don't wait until January 9th to look at that form for the first time. We don't want you to be surprised, and have a last minute scramble. So, fill out do a draft of the form, talk to your major advisor if you've got questions about any of your major requirements or other, your general plan, and then follow up with Professor Ananat so that the between the two of you can anticipate any sticky areas, as they say.
I had a question. When you're doing the 4+1, would you be paying tuition only to Barnard your 4th year, or would you have to be paying 2 tuitions? Like, how does that work financially?
You pay Barnard tuition during your 4th year and SIPA tuition during your 5th year. So so that's one of the advantages of the 4+1. Can save you money, can save time. And because in general, the Barnard tuition is lower than SIPA tuition. And if you are on financial aid or scholarship aid at Barnard, that would apply to year 4. And then as Brianne pointed out, there are other financing strategies at the graduate level, but in general, graduate programs, at Columbia's graduate programs generally are more expensive than Columbia's undergraduate programs, and so that's where there's an advantage there. So did you want to add anything?
Thank you. Sorry.
Go ahead, you can, and then I see I see a question in the chat too, but go ahead, Noemi,
Okay.
you want to ask?
I was just wondering, is it at all possible to do a double major undergrad with the 4+1? Because I know you said it's only 2 classes in the senior year, and they would probably be your seminars. So is that possible at all?
I mean, it's going to depend. It's going to depend whether at least one of your majors lets you take those senior requirements your junior year. It's going to require extra careful planning. It's not necessarily impossible, but it's going to require extra careful planning, conversations likely with your department chair or department or major advisor, as well as with me.
Thank you.
To the question from Jaya in the chat. So we just noted that the benefits are it saves time and saves money. Basically, you have 1 year of the SIPA degree as part of your Barnard 4th year, so you're not paying for that in additional year. And also you get the SIPA degree in 1 year instead of 2. There are some advantages to finishing up your Barnard degree in 4 years, going out into like the job force, and then deciding, oh, actually, what I really want is a SIPA degree, and then a more traditional path to doing a professional graduate degree. Sometimes that decision informed by some experience post undergrad can more positively affect your graduate school experience. But again, I think that the time and money savings and the opportunity and the fact that this program exists is a great opportunity. I don't see why, if you could, like why you wouldn't. But it also, if you've done that careful planning and you have a pretty mellow senior year planned, you also have the option to have a much better senior year at Barnard than also being a senior and a first year SIPA student, which can be a very intense experience. And so I think it's also, you have to determine for yourself, like, what do you want that fourth year to look like? Do you want to be really fully, a senior at Barnard and going through all of those experiences and opportunities? Or do you want to have that combined with kind of splitting most of your time over at International Affairs Building at SIPA with the other SIPA first years?
And I would just follow up on that to say that, just a reminder that beyond Barnard, we support graduate school planning in general. And that question of graduate school through a 4+1, graduate school right after graduating, taking time to work first, it's a big question. And we're happy to sort of talk that through with you if you're, sort of thinking about the pros and cons of that. Professor Ananat can also speak to that, as can Dean Yee and Brian, probably everybody. It is a very personal decision, like the timing of graduate school and what's best for you. And so we're happy to talk that through with you and talk about other options in addition to the 4+1 pathway, so that you're considering everything before you make a big decision. So.
And I wanted to reinforce what Christine wrote in the chat about applying after you've submitted and been approved by Barnard, applying to SIPA. So yes, we are accepting applications now at SIPA, but we would, you have to go through a couple steps at Barnard first. And we also do want to see, as part of your application, this fall semester on your transcript. So just gives us that much more information to determine your admissibility to SIPA. So we're actually not encouraging you to apply earlier, but to kind of go through the fall semester, have that semester done, and then be sure to apply by February 5th after you've completed all your steps. I'll also mention that some students do write to me directly to have a meeting to talk about the program. I'm always happy to do so, but I'll always ask if you first, our checklist, have you first spoken with Beyond Barnard? Have you first spoken with Professor Ananat? Because I can go on and on about the program, but if you're not eligible, then it might be not a productive conversation. So be sure to have those meetings first before coming to see me. But again, I'm always here, so is Brianne, and thanks for coming to this info session. Hope you have a great rest of your week. I don't know, Christine, if you had anything else to say.
I just want to thank again everybody, all my colleagues across Barnard and Columbia, and thank the students for their time and their consideration. And please just reach out to, you can always start with Beyond Barnard at barnard.edu. Claire and many other members of our team look at that, and we'll be able to answer basic questions and then direct you to the right place. So feel free to follow up. Let us know if you have any questions or concerns, and good luck to everybody as you finish midterms and finish the semester.